All right, welcome to the broadcast, everyone. I am so excited for my guest today. This is a topic of great interest to me since I'm a matchmaker for 2 decades, matching people wanting to find their soulmates. And often I come across people that I talk to that have just gotten out of a relationship or a divorce with a narcissist, or what the person thinks is probably a narcissist, difficult personality. So today we're talking with HG Tudor, who's an educational YouTuber whose channel exists to provide a better understanding about narcissism. HG Tudor is his pseudonym as he chooses to protect his identity. He's got some great merch, you guys. I've got my weaponized empath, courtesy of HG Tudor coffee mug. So we'll talk about that later. But welcome, HG. Thank you so much.
Not at all. Pleasure to be here, Marla.
All right. So could you share a little bit? I'd love to get into your story. I know a lot of my listeners will not have heard about you before or understand how narcissists become created. So can you just share a little bit about yourself and how you became such a well-renowned teacher and YouTuber about this subject?
Okay, I'm a diagnosed narcissistic psychopath, meaning that I have both narcissistic personality disorder and I also have antisocial personality disorder. And I have a heightened awareness of what I am. I accept what I am. I embrace what I am. And despite many people asking me, wouldn't you like to be different? The very short answer to that is no. I'm hugely effective as what I am. And what I do is I have a private and professional life, which I keep to myself, which I don't share with people that I tell about the way that I see the world and the way that my kind see the world. Aspects of it I share, but for instance, what I do professionally, I keep to myself. I keep various other aspects of my life under wraps and share certain aspects with people so that they get a glimpse into the way that my mind works and the way that I behave. And I created a blog where I've written thousands of articles about narcissism and psychopathy. And as you've mentioned, I have a YouTube channel, HG Tudor, Knowing the Narcissist, the Ultra, where there are thousands of videos covering lots of different aspects of narcissism and psychopathy. Greater focus on narcissism because it's more widespread. And I speak to people and help them identify if they're dealing with a narcissist and help them deal with difficult situations involving that narcissist so that they don't make the same errors that people make time and time again. So I have a wealth of information about narcissism and psychopathy because of what I am. And I have fine-tuned that material in the number of years that I've been creating information about it on the various platforms that I operate.
And when you say that you're an ultra, what is an ultra?
Well, I've developed a categorization to help people understand the different types of narcissist, that there are, if you like, various flavors. And I've created what are known as schools and cadres. So cadres are essentially the preferences that a narcissist has: somatic, cerebral, victim, or elite. And then the schools are more about the modus operandi, the function, the operations, the behaviors of the narcissist. There are 4 schools: lesser, which is divided into 4 sub-schools; mid-range, divided into 4 sub-schools; and greater, 3 sub-schools; and ultra. And I'm the ultra. The reason I'm the ultra is because I'm the only one of my kind that has this level of insight and the capability of disseminating this information to people. Hence, I have that status. Within those other categories, I don't want to spend too long talking about them because it's so expansive and I've got lots of videos. So those listening, if you want to learn more about that, I've got plenty of books and articles and videos that tell you more. But basically, lesser and mid-range narcissists don't know what they are. Greater narcissists do. Greater narcissists are very rare indeed. Many people think they're involved with the greater narcissist because they don't really understand narcissism. And I help them realize that actually they're dealing with a lesser or mid-range narcissist, what that means, and enabling them to understand and translate all of the behaviors so that they gain understanding. And I do all of this not because I'm altruistic, because there's no such thing as an altruistic narcissist. And I don't do this because I'm a kind individual. I do this because it suits my purposes to do it. And it ultimately leads to a win-win scenario. I get what I want out of it, which links to something called the prime aims. And those people that interact with me gain freedom and understanding, and their lives become vastly better for accessing this information that I provide to them.
Yeah, it really does. And it's interesting how you realize you're a narcissist. I remember hearing you on a another video saying that a girlfriend, when you were in your younger years, pointed it out to you and said, I think you may be a narcissist. And that's how you went to, out of curiosity, to a therapist or something and realized that.
Well, I'd always known that I was different. I always known that I was set apart from people. And I knew that with certain behaviors, I enjoyed playing with people. And I recognized that people were there to be utilized. I didn't behave in a similar way, for instance, to my siblings. I had questions about things that they didn't. I had questions that they found amusing and entertaining at times. They used to think of me as a little alien or robot. And I know that I function differently from those people around me. And it was a former girlfriend, as you correctly identify, who said to me, I believe that you're both a narcissist and a psychopath. And I said, that's fascinating. Do tell. So she did. And I said, well, thank you very much for sharing that with me. I must be about other matters now. And so after all, I wasn't going to tell her that she was right, because that would be a transference of power. And once she told me this information, I went away and did some research of my own. And I thought, now I have a label for what I am. Jolly good. Thank you very much. And then later on, I was diagnosed by relevant psychologists.
And what is a psychopath? What is that combo, the narcissistic psychopath?
Well, you have a pure psychopath or a sociopath. You have a narcissistic psychopath, which is a hybrid, which is what I am. And then you have a pure narcissist. There's lots of pure narcissists. They're more numerous. Those individuals, in general terms, need to seek fuel from people. So they need validation for their behaviors. They need to control people. They are manipulative. They have a invariably deluded view of the way that they function. They don't have any emotional empathy. The psychopath doesn't need fuel. Psychopaths only really utilize people to get to their aims, which are, for instance, the alleviation of boredom. Get bored very quickly. A psychopath, if you like, is a cold version of antisocial personality disorder, and the sociopath is like a hot version. So the sociopath is more skittery, more likely to erupt, whereas the psychopath is a perfectly cold, heartless predator. The narcissistic psychopath is an amalgam of those two things. So I need fuel, but not as much as a narcissist does. I have a higher executive function, whereby I'm very goal-driven, and if you are able to assist me in getting to my goal, you'll be of use to me. If you get in the way of my goal, I will disincentivize you. I similarly have no emotional empathy. I don't like people, but I need to have an interaction with them because of fuel, and I function in that particular way, whereby essentially the end always justifies the means. And I plot and I plan and I calculate and have access to considerable resource and ability to achieve those aims. Most narcissists don't. Most narcissists are lesser or mid-range, which means they're very much focused on the now rather than thinking ahead. Many people, because they don't understand narcissism, think that most narcissists are always plotting and planning about what's going to happen next. And that isn't accurate.
It's more reactive in the moment, right? These flashes of anger are reactive.
It is. So it's now and now and now. And so the narcissist will do something, and their narcissism is very good at getting control, which is one of the prime aims, and gaining fuel. So it's very good at doing that. But for a lesser mid-range narcissist, it then results in collateral consequences. So what it will do is it will gain that fuel, it will gain that control, but will then cause a future problem for the narcissist. And that's why those particular type of narcissists are in and out of work, have financial problems, have haphazard relationships with family, particularly intimate relationships, because they are all ancillary to the assertion of control. So a particular type of narcissist will assert control over his girlfriend by hitting her, which might then lead to her leaving the relationship. So striking her caused her to come under control in that moment, but in the next moment, she leaves the relationship. At that juncture, the narcissism then has to do something to nullify the threat to control posed by her departing the relationship, which might be, for instance, to physically grab her and say, no, you're not going anywhere, or to issue a threat to her.
The narcissist, I guess I'm a real, I'm ultra empath, I guess, because I've been in 4 relationships, and they all tend, now, I mean, I'm not a professional to diagnose, but from all of the videos I've watched, hundreds, and books and all of that, I could see that these were narcissists that I married and dated, and somehow I was always attracted to that. I don't know, I found out early on, and then I stayed. And the interesting thing about, so you talk about the empath and the narcissist, there's this range of narcissists that I have been involved with and see that it's mostly verbal abuse. It's mostly emotional. It's mostly put downs, criticism, cutting you off in the middle of the conversation, always having to be right. I'm right, you're wrong. Always just making you feel on the defense. I felt on the defense. I felt I was always defending myself on trial. No, that's not true. And then the empaths like me, we stay, the women I talk to, even with those digs and we're feeling like crap, then they're nice. And then we think, oh, okay, they're nice. It's okay. He's not that bad. And then they're mean. And I think that's the trauma bonding and changing our brain chemistry to get used to that. What do you say about that one?
Well, empathic individuals are addicted to narcissists, and what that does is it creates something called emotional thinking. It doesn't mean that somebody behaves in an hysterical fashion, but rather that they don't use logic. So, for instance, you are in a relationship with somebody and they came along and they told you that you're a princess, and they gave you flattering and complimentary remarks, and they introduced you to their family, and they talked about how wonderful you are. And they talked on the telephone to you a lot and wanted to spend lots of time with you and gave you great sex and bought you nice gifts and took you to interesting places, and they liked the things that you liked. And you thought to yourself, I've truly met a wonderful person here. And then all of a sudden that person starts to call you names and then belittles you and invalidates you and doesn't answer the phone like they once did and doesn't want to spend as much time with you. And they criticize you. And the things that they once liked about you, they now start criticizing you. Empathic individuals, rather than go, this person is abusing me, and that tells me that what came before can't have been genuine. I'm out of here. Empathic people don't do that. They go, oh dear, I want to get back to the way that it was. That was so wonderful, so intoxicating, so mesmerizing. Because I've had it once, that must mean I can get it back. I must have done something wrong to make the relationship go downhill. What have I done wrong? What is it that's wrong with this person? What can I do to fix and heal this relationship so I can get back to that period? And the short answer is you can't do anything, because it's the gift of the narcissist. And so empathic people, rather than recognize that they're being abused, and that person came along and presented them with an illusion to draw them in, they try and repair it. And we're not talking about someone who's a little bit moody, or just because somebody's not done what you want. That doesn't make them a narcissist. We're talking about pathological behaviors where there's repeated abuse over a sustained period of time. That abuse can take lots of different forms, as you know. But when somebody engages in that behavior, that signals that one, you're being abused, and two, what came beforehand wasn't genuine and it was just an artifice. But empathic people fail to recognize that. It's understandable, and we rely upon that. And therefore, that person remains trying to fix the relationship. And then what happens is we give you a dose of the good stuff again. And you think, oh, fantastic. Everything's all right. Peace has broken out. Huzzah. And it lasts for a day or 2 weeks or whatever it might be. And then it goes away again. And rather than you think, I'm not putting up with this pushing and pulling, this blowing hot and cold, you think to yourself, I got it back once, I can get it back again. So you try. And you try the things that you tried before, but this time it doesn't work. So you're a little bit mystified. But rather than think to yourself, I'm being abused, I need to get out of here, you think, I need to solve this problem. I need to work out why what I didn't get this wonderful time back again. Maybe I perhaps need to try a bit harder or try for longer. So you do. And then the narcissist grants you this golden period again. Not because of anything you've necessarily done, but because of the way the narcissist sees you. And you end up thinking, oh, good. The good stuff has returned again. Everything's all right. And then you bounce backwards and forwards. Your addiction conning you into believing that you're doing the right thing by staying, that it silences any dissenting voices of logic and leads you by emotional thinking so that your decision-making process is stymied, so that you rely upon emotions and a lack of logic, and thus you remain trapped.
And especially if we're married to the person, maybe we own a house, or maybe some people have children, for me, I spent thousands of dollars on therapists, on energy healers, on coaches, on anything that I could to think, okay, what I need to not react. I need to learn how to handle this. I need to change so that then he would change. And it just, that, no matter what I did, and I just became, had some credit card debt. That's about all that happened.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then I would find too, in these kind of relationships, when they were being nice, there was something, it didn't feel right. It's like, oh, this isn't, I don't know. It almost, I should have been happy. I was happy, but I felt, no, something's not right here. And then shortly after, there'd be that insult or dig again. So I found myself not feeling right, being treated nice. It was an odd thing.
It is often the case that when people look back with a degree of clarity, they think, I never really felt truly safe or content. There was always something that wasn't quite there. And I didn't really pick up on it too much at the time. But now I look back and I can sort of see that I was always wondering when they would call. I was worried that they might end the relationship. Well, you don't think like that if you're in a healthy relationship. It doesn't even enter your mind to think, is this person not going to call me? You just don't go there. But it's because we put you in what you think is a secure position, but actually it isn't, because it feels so marvelous and wonderful that you're so desperate to keep hold of it. You fear that the slightest wrong move could cause it to go, because it is so intoxicating. It is so overwhelmingly wonderful. Not for everybody, there are different flavors, but often it is. This is what's called the golden period. And it's so consuming that you think, gosh, I finally met the right person. And often what happens, of course, is that you've had a string of relationships with narcissists that didn't realize it. So you've been tenderized by those, which makes it all the easier for the current narcissist to ensnare you. Because if you're given the good stuff, the really good stuff, you think to yourself, I've been badly treated by my 3 previous boyfriends or 2 ex-husbands or whatever. With this guy, wow, I feel really protected. And often you forget that you've been through this dance before, that you were drawn in and everything was okay, because your emotional thinking clouds your memory and judgment. Whereas in actual fact, you've had a golden period 3 times prior with different narcissists, and now you're on your 4th narcissist, but you don't pick up on it. Sometimes because you're dealing with different types of narcissists, so you fail to spot them. That's quite common. That, you think you recognize one set of behaviors and think, oh, right, yeah, that person's a problem. You might not know they're a narcissist, but you realize that was a problem. And then you meet somebody else and they're also a narcissist, but they come at it in a different way. So you fail to pick up on it.
Yeah, I read a quote online today and I wrote it down. It says, "You never apologized me for hurting me, but I apologized to you a dozen times for being angry about it." And that the reactive abuse is something as well that I've engaged in, and the narcissist would push me and insult and insult, and I'd say, okay, I'm not going to react, non-reaction, and then until I just go nuts and start screaming into pillows and just really go. Sometimes I would drop to my knees on the floor because I would have been so emotionally, decimated. And then the narcissist would say, God, you really need help. Look at you. You should be on medication. I mean, So that's one of the tactics too. But I would think that might be in the mid or lesser, because I've heard you say that you have a girlfriend, you're in a relationship, but she doesn't realize it, or I don't know what kind of tactics you use for your crime aims, but I would think that you wouldn't be pushing someone to the reactive abuse.
Well, what you're dealing with there when you're talking about that reactive abuse and thinking the sort of tactic of a particular narcissist, you've got to remember is where a lesser or mid-range narcissist is engaging in that behavior and they're unaware, they believe that you truly are the problem. So what happens is you ask them, let's say, for example, the narcissist has telephoned you and you fail to answer. That wounds that narcissist because you inadvertently, but your intention's irrelevant because it's how it's perceived by the narcissist. You have inadvertently signaled to that narcissist that narcissist is not important because you failed to answer the telephone. It does not matter that you might be performing a life-saving operation or that you are running after a criminal because you're a police officer, or that you're still up in court making a submission on behalf of your client in the child custody case. None of that matters. You fail to answer the telephone. You therefore signal to the narcissist that he or she is not important. You've therefore wounded the narcissist and threatened the narcissist's sense of control. The narcissism as a self-defense mechanism then cranks into life. And basically what it seeks to do is to protect the narcissist from the threat to control that you have caused. One way of doing so is to try and get the narcissist to assert control over you directly. But he just tried to do that by telephoning you and it didn't work. But it might be that the narcissist rings you again and again and again and again. And then eventually the narcissism says, this hoovering of this victim isn't working. Our host, the narcissist, if the narcissist had a voice, it would be saying this, has been repeatedly wounded and we are not getting control. Therefore, we need to move to an alternative form of control. And it might be that the narcissist then turns to his friend and says, do you know something? I've rung my girlfriend 5 times and the stupid cow has not answered her phone. And the friend goes, wow, that's women for you. She's probably doing her nails or something. And the friend's agreement that the girlfriend is a lazy and miserable person for not answering the phone gives the narcissist a subconscious sense of control over her. So that threat to control has now been dealt with. But the girlfriend is painted black as a consequence of her treacherous and traitorous behavior in not answering that phone. The narcissist goes home. The girlfriend remains painted black. And when she greets him, she says, hello, how was your day? It's an innocuous question, but it's now seen through the lens of being painted black. So she might have said, I have just shot your dog, defecated on your collection of of baseball cards, and smashed up your television. So when she asks that question, it's viewed through the lens of black. Mm-hmm. She's asking a question. Who does she think she is to ask a question of the narcissist? Asking questions is nosiness. Asking questions, it's cross-examination. He feels, driven by his narcissism, that she is now threatening his sense of control. So he turns around and says, what's it got to do with you? And she thinks, hang on a second, all I did was ask him how his day was, and he snaps at me like that. Why are you talking to me like that? Another question. She's threatening his sense of control by challenging him. I'm not talking to you like anything. You asked me in an accusatory tone what I've been doing today. I didn't. Yes, you did. No, I didn't. You did. And this is because his narcissism has created the black lens for her, so that everything she says and does is interpreted as if she's a bad person.
Yeah. Yeah.
So even if she were to say, but I love you, that will be interpreted as, no, you don't really. You're just saying that. You've never shown me any love, which of course is nonsense. But in that moment, the narcissism tells him that she has never shown any love, because it's absolutes. It's black and white thinking. It's always or never. There's no grey about this. There's no object constancy. He doesn't give her a pass and go, well, do you know what? She didn't answer the phone probably because she was really busy. You know, she is a good girlfriend. That's far too balanced. That doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. And so what happens is, until she backs down and apologizes and cries and says, I'm terribly sorry, I didn't mean anything by it. You know, I love you, you're wonderful, etc., and gives her the control. And his narcissism feels that she's being punished for the earlier transgression. She then flips to being painted white. And at that juncture, he may well say to you, no, that's okay. Come on, give me a cuddle. And then he cuddles and kisses her, and then he takes her to bed. And she's left a bit confused. I don't understand why he was so horrible to me. And then the next second, he's knocking my hip out in bed. But she doesn't complain or question it, because at least he's being nice to her now.
Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh. HG. So that exact thing had happened to me before. I was on a walk around a lake. My phone was in my purse at the bottom. I didn't hear the phone ring. And it's the reaction was, why didn't you answer your phone? When I call you, you answer your phone when I call. And I said, well, I didn't hear it. And I used to think exactly, I thought the overreaction of little things should be reserved for if I stabbed his dog or killed his mother, or, I mean, a real bad behavior. The reaction to the little things was like the biggest, most horrific, you're the most horrible person in the world. Exactly.
Because that's what's happening in his world. There is no sense of proportion. So when he called you, basically his narcissism, imagine his narcissism sat on his shoulder and it's saying, she didn't answer the phone. That's because she hates you, really. That's because she thinks you're useless. That's because she thinks you're pathetic. She's probably actually now being rutted from behind by some other bloke because she's a cheating whore. And that's what the narcissism creates, so that his fury ignites, so that he's then motivated to get control over you. Not so he goes, she's probably just busy. It's okay. That doesn't get the narcissist control. That response is neither use nor ornament to the narcissist. And instead, the narcissism has to make the narcissist feel a particular way and think a particular way, so the narcissist is motivated to get that control. So in a similar way, when your throat is dry and feels uncomfortable, your body is telling you that you're dehydrated to make you go and drink, so that you don't suffer injury or death as a consequence of dehydration. If you didn't experience the discomfort of thirst, you wouldn't drink, and then you'd probably die. So your body has evolved to have a self-defense mechanism, which is thirst, or hunger, or pain, or feeling cold, or feeling too hot. So you take steps to protect yourself. The narcissism is the same. It's similar. What it does is it makes the narcissist feel furious, and it tells the narcissist that you're cheating. So that's why you suddenly get this out of nowhere accusation that you've been bouncing up and down on top of the milkman all morning. And you're thinking, where on earth does that come from? That's absolutely preposterous. Why? He knows that I love him. Why would he accuse me of sleeping with the milkman? Because his narcissism has told him that that's what you're doing to make him jealous, so that he then erupts at you. So you then respond by going, honestly, I haven't been doing it. It's you that I care about. I didn't answer my phone because it was in the bottom of my bag. I'm terribly sorry. I'm really, really sorry. And when you respond like that,
Mhm.
Not only are you giving fuel to the narcissist, which is what the narcissist needs because it's the narcissist's lifeblood, you're now signaling that you're under control. And your suitable mea culpa is also a suitable trade-off for being punished for your earlier transgression. And thus, all of a sudden, everything's all right again. The storm has just vanished.
Well, therein lies that for me, I would, just like you said, his narcissism's talking to you. That's how his brain works. So me as the ultra empath, I think, okay, he can't help it. He's sick. He's got a personality disorder. It's not his fault. And then
it's all very well thinking in such terms, and whilst it's understandable, it won't do you any good.
Yeah.
Because whilst you could recognize it and say the narcissists can't help themselves, and that's correct, because they're governed by their narcissism, that isn't to say that the individual, and some people misinterpret this, they often think, well, are you saying, HG, therefore, that because that person can't help what they're doing, they should be given a free pass? No, I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is that you should recognize that this person is governed by their narcissism. They are governed by having an alternative worldview to yours. That's why there is this clash. And what you must recognize is that because the narcissist has a different worldview to yours, you are never going to be able to persuade the narcissist to understand your point of view, because you're trying to teach a blind person to see, and you can't. And what you should do is recognize the narcissist cannot help the way that they are. They will never change. I cannot change them. I therefore must have nothing to do with them. That is the only way of dealing with them successfully.
Yeah, you say when you know, you go. You say that.
Mm-hmm. That's right. You get out and you stay out.
Oh, God, this is so great. Okay, so since I'm a matchmaker, are there some red flags that you can share if a woman, well, woman or man, but say that a woman could look out for on a first or second date with a man? What would he do if he's a narcissist? Or would maybe a lot of them just cover it up the first couple of dates? But are there any blatant red flags that we should be looking out for?
What has to be remembered is that you can have a red flag manifest, and they're not solely the preserve of narcissists. And so somebody can do something which is a red flag. That doesn't mean that they're a narcissist. It just raises the possibility that they are. And what you need to be doing is looking for repeated red flags, and lots of them. So let's take, for example, you go on a date and the man involved is excessively polite, opening doors for you, opening the car door for you, always stands up when you leave the table, and so on and so forth. Being excessively polite is a red flag, but he doesn't do anything else. There's no other red flags. He's not a narcissist. He just happens to be excessively polite. So you need to be looking for a range of them. And I have a book that's called Red Flag, which sets out 50 of the red flags of seduction, which if people want to know how to defend themselves, they should access that. Some examples are excessive flattery, someone who keeps complimenting you, and then also issuing compliments where they're not really on the mark. So, for example, it might be that you recognize that you're quite plain looking, and this person goes, "Oh, you're absolutely stunningly beautiful," and you know you're not. But with them saying that, whilst you might think, "Oh, they're just being kind," it's not representative of the situation, and is often the behavior of a narcissist. Smearing exes. Many people have got a relationship history, and of course, some people may well have been on the receiving end of a narcissist and had a terrible time of it. But where you recognize boundaries, having emotional empathy, you don't sit down and immediately give chapter and verse on everything that's gone on with that person on the first or second date. It's a natural enough question. So how long have you been single is a common question that's asked. They might say, 6 months, last relationship was a bit difficult, but I've moved on. That would be the response of someone that is invariably showing some boundaries, or you're possibly dealing with a very sophisticated narcissist. But most narcissists aren't. And the narcissist would say, "Yeah, I've been single about 6 months, ex-wife, absolute fucking bitch," and then launches into a tirade going on about what she did and how horrible she is. That oversharing of information and smearing is a significant red flag. The fact that the individual might be looking around at who else is in the restaurant while you're with them, they're not giving you that proper attention because they're basically scanning who else is in there for the purposes of looking to control them. That's another red flag. Mm-hmm. Vagueness, where you ask them certain questions, they kind of sort of brush it off, where they're deflecting. You ought to be suspicious of that. Where they don't provide you with sufficient detail. You're not expecting a thesis, but you could at least think that they would know the names of some of their family members. And if they're sort of hesitant about sharing that information, that also looks suspicious. Individual whereby they are prone to grandiose gestures. So, for instance, you turn up on the first date and they've bought you a gift. Why? They don't know you. There's no need to buy you a gift. It's not your birthday. It's not Christmas. You haven't done anything that merits it. You might just say, oh, that's rather sweet. But it's not. It's bribery. Yeah. Again, of itself, it could be just misjudged. But if it's seen with a number of red flags, you may be dealing with the narcissist. The fact of somebody who, after the date has taken place, bombards you with messages. There's a lack of boundary recognition, a sense of entitlement, and it's looking to assert control. Many people, unfortunately, though, fall into the trap of thinking, oh, gosh, that person's really into me. And similarly, where they're dealing with a healthy, normal person who doesn't immediately respond, their minds have been polluted by so-called dating and relationship advisors who've said, oh, he's clearly not that into you. Nonsense. You've gone on a date with somebody and you both enjoyed it. It's likely that the other person will say, well, I really enjoyed that. I'd like to see you again. Yes, I'd like that too. Great. I'll give you a call in a week and we'll set something up. Yeah. Now, that individual, before you have met him, he has a job and he has a house and he might, depending on his age, he might have children and he has friends and he has hobbies and he has interests, i.e. he's got a pretty full life before you came along. If he starts messaging you incessantly, really enjoyed last night, can't wait to see you again, he's shoving to one side all of those other individuals, which shows a lack of emotional empathy. And he doesn't really know you that well. And he's already launching into interacting with you to a greater degree than is necessary. That's suspicious. But what happens is people think, oh, I've not heard from him for a few days. That's entirely healthy. Why would he contact you immediately the next day or the day after? You've been on one date. And the priorities in his life, top is probably, let's say he's got children, it's his children. Then it's his job, then it's running his home, then it's seeing his friends, then it's doing his hobbies, and then you're perhaps 9th or 10th on the list because you're just the lady that he's been on a date with. But people get their panties in a bunch thinking, oh, I've not heard from him. Well, I mustn't be interested. Well, in actual fact, that's a good sign. And then he contacts you on the Thursday and says, hey, how are you doing? Are you still on for going out this Saturday? And you can then respond and say, yeah. He says, well, there's a new Mexican restaurant that's opened. Would you like to go there? Yeah, that sounds lovely. How about 8 o'clock? I'll meet you there. It's called such and such. Yep, see you then. And then he sends you a text, perhaps at 6 o'clock, saying, just checking you're okay for tonight. Yeah, I am. Great, see you there. That's how a healthy person responds. But so many people have become conditioned because of the need for instant hits and reassurance that social media has played a part in, that if they don't hear from someone for 3 or 4 days, they then think there's something wrong and they're not interested. And by contrast, they fall into the trap, invariably driven by their emotional thinking, that if they're getting lots of messages from somebody, that's a good thing. Actually, it's not. It's a great big red flag. So those are just a few of the red flags that exist. There are many, many more. And
well, great point, because I'll hear women say, oh, I've never felt like this before with anybody. We talked the first night, 6 hours on the phone, and he's been texting me all day long and sending me pictures.
Those are red flags.
Yes.
Yeah, those are red flags.
Love it. The women love it. Yeah.
They do, because they may well be empathic individuals and it's catering to their addiction, and their addiction is going, yum, yum. I'm getting plenty of interaction with a narcissist. Yeah. Keep it going. So it makes that empathic victim think to themselves, oh, the emotional thinking basically makes them feel good. Yeah. So they'll want more of it, and they'll want more of it. And all they're doing is feeding their addiction and ignoring the red flags, which are, he's monopolizing your time. He's not recognizing boundaries. The fact is that you've only just met. Why on earth do you need to spend 6 hours talking? And then doing the same the following night? And rather than go, actually, you're right. that is a bit intrusive, isn't it? We don't really know one another, and he's monopolizing my time. The victim doesn't do that. They go, no, it's just really, we get on, we clicked. We're like, you can still get on without having to spend 6 hours talking.
Right. They think it's my soulmate. It's my twin flame.
Exactly. Well, those are use of those words.
Yeah, those words. He's never met anyone like me. I'm different from all the other women, or his ex-wife.
Exactly. I mean, exactly. Yeah. Although he said that to the lady who was on a date with the night before and the one before that, but you don't know that.
Right. So I wanted to just touch on something you were talking about, the some of these narcissists, they can't keep a job and all of this. Mm-hmm. Now you, as the ultra, I mean, I'm always thinking, how does HG do it? Because I'd like to be more productive. I mean, you don't share what your other career is, your other job, but you have that. And then you are constantly writing and uploading amazing videos that are just packed with information, and the way you present them and all of the things you do in your consultations. And you must not sleep much, or how are you so effective in all of this?
Well, you are correct. Part of the equation is that I don't sleep much. I sleep between 4 to 5 hours. That's plenty for me. And that affords me more opportunity to do things. I don't like wasting time, so you wouldn't find me just lying in the sun. I like to get my vitamin D topped up that way, but I'll be taking a phone call, or I'll be writing something, or I'll be thinking something through. I don't just sit there like a cabbage. I'm a fast decision maker. I'm not affected by emotional thinking, so I make decisions based on logic, and I get to the point. So I was only having a discussion with one of my clients this afternoon about the fact that often people think that I'm being unpleasant to them when I'm simply being direct and telling them, do this, do this. I'm not swearing at them. I'm not belittling them. I'm just explaining, do this, do this. And it's a short message, short conversation. Too often people flannel on talking about minutiae. I don't like small talk. I rarely engage in it. I'm not interested in discussing minutiae, and I don't waste my time dealing with matters which are unproductive. I'm very good at seeing a route through something and getting on with it, rather than prevaricating and causing, basically thinking, going round and round in circles in relation to certain things. And because I'm not concerned by what people are going to be upset with the decision that I've made. I know it's the right one, it's the logical one. I operate a very evidence-based approach. And therefore, I don't waste my time going on fool's errands. I don't waste my time doing things which are unproductive. Mm-hmm. So as a combination of being organized and focused, there's one part of my psychopathy is that I'm hyper-focused on something. So when I decide I'm going to get it done, it gets done. And therefore, I'm able to allocate sufficient time to get things done, and I am talented, which enables me to do things faster perhaps than other people would do. I also recognize as well where it's useful to harness other people through delegation, etc. And that, of course, saves time also. And so there's a variety of reasons as to why I'm able to pack so much in.
And so, and one thing that always struck me that was really interesting is that if you're asked, if you could wave a magic wand, would you change and be an empathic person and like, most people? And you said, no, I'm very effective. And what was like, oh, it just hit me when you said, I don't lie in a fetal position crying when someone breaks up. I'm not walking around saying, why? And yeah, and I was almost, sometimes I'd say, gosh, if I could be a little more like HG, have some of your traits a little bit, because super empaths, we have so much pain, emotional pain, crying through yoga class, or just trying to release all this emotional pain that we've taken on from relationships and hoping things would be different. So you don't have any of that.
No, well, no, I don't. You're afflicted, of course, because you have emotional investment in the relationship. So when the relationship doesn't work for me any longer, I disengage from somebody and that's it. I move on. I don't sit and think, well, I feel really bad for ending this relationship. No, I don't. And I made entirely the right decision.
Yeah.
I don't sit and think, oh, I miss this person. Why would I miss somebody that wasn't providing me with something? I made the right thing. I'm better off without them. But of course, even somebody who's empathic the relationship has been brought to an end, even if they've brought the relationship to an end and they're right to do so, they never really have a sort of guillotine moment with it. They feel guilty. Why do you feel guilty for doing the right thing? That's part of the weakness of being empathic. And I often are engaged in teaching people how to deal with that guilt. They feel sad for the demise of the relationship. Why are you sad that something that wasn't working has ended? You should be cracking open the champagne. It's an illogical response, but it's driven by emotional thinking and the emotional investment that comes. And people will say, well, you're very cold-hearted. And I say, well, you're entitled to form that view. I see it as being effective. There's nothing to be gained by lamenting something that wasn't working. That's what an idiot would do.
Right. But would you say you're cold-hearted in general? Because you do say you don't like people, you don't like animals. Well,
people would regard me as cold-hearted, but that's their perception of me. I regard it as being simply effective at what I do. So people are always going to have a view about people. That's part of what makes the world go around, but also why the human race is so annoying, because of the views that are expounded. The fact is that there will be people, and they are entitled to their opinion, wrong as it is, who will say that you are cold-hearted. Mm-hmm. I'll say, no, I'm simply get on with what I need to get on. I'm not interested in all this frippery that you lot all engage in. I'm different. That's all it is.
Yeah, and I'm sure you can look at some super empath and think, oh, you idiot, you're not effective. So it's,
Well, indeed. And of course, I recognize its perceptions. There'll be those that look on me and think that's a joyless existence that you have. And I understand why people form that view, but it doesn't trouble me. I don't think to myself, oh, poor me, there's no joy in my life. I don't want joy. It doesn't serve any purpose for me. I want effectiveness. I want fuel. I want to achieve my goals. That's what works for me. Somebody else might say, oh, I'd hate to live like that. That's fine. That's fine. You're allowed to have that view. And good for you, because you don't have to live like that. I would hate to be held back by my emotions and make stupid decisions based upon emotions rather than logic. So there we are. Yeah. I'm content being what I am, and you can be what you are.
But you do enjoy things like, I know on your channel, I think, don't you have you read some classics or something?
I do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so I have an intellectual appreciation of good writing and excellent music and well put together films and such like. So I have an intellectual appreciation of those things. I don't have an emotional appreciation of them.
Yeah, you were not going to cry at a sad film or something, but you'll appreciate how it's put together and the acting and music.
Yeah, that's right. I find it amusing watching people when they cry at films.
So for the audience watching this, the links will be below, but if you enjoy classics or whatever, HG, you've got this amazing British accent, and it just makes you could just have a cup of tea and sit by the fire or whatever and listen to you read some of these stories.
That's on my sister channel. So I have HG Tudor, Knowing the Narcissist, the Ultra, which is where there are thousands of videos about narcissism and all its various facets. There's a sister channel called The Treasure Trove, and that's where I read poetry and read excerpts from classics, etc. So if somebody wants to listen to my chocolatey, velvety tones and my stentorian delivery, that's the place to go, and you can make yourself a mug of something warm and reassuring and pull your empath cloak around you and sit and listen to me.
I love it. So how can people work with you? Just explain. I've done a session with you, and it was just very helpful. So just tell a little bit about your offerings.
Certainly. As I mentioned, I have a variety of platforms, a blog, which is narcsite.com, narcsite.com. Thousands of articles there, all gratis. There's the aforementioned YouTube channel, and my work also gets put out onto Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. If you want my involvement in your situation, you can, for instance, do the narc detector to determine whether you're dealing with a narcissist, and I use my expertise to analyze your evidence to determine are you dealing with a narcissist or not. You can put yourself through the empath detector to find out whether you're an empath or not. And if you are one, what type you are and what all of that means. And there's various trait detectors and weaponized empath detectors also. If you want to speak to me, so that you want my input and join the thousands of people who've benefited from my logical approach to things and my expertise, whether it's wanting help with the child custody problem that you're having with the narcissist, or how you get away from the narcissist, or how you stop the narcissist hoovering you, or how you move on from the narcissist because you keep thinking about what's happened to you, then you can book an audio consultation with me. And all of those things that I've just mentioned can be found in the menu bar at narcissist.com. There are also links in the video descriptions of my various videos. And if you want to see what people think about the goods and services that I've provided, there are a testimonial section on my blog, and you can read what everybody else has had to say about their experience of engaging my products and services. And there's a thing called the Knowledge Vault, which is where all of these products and services are available. There's over 200 of them. So that's where you can book the audio consultation, organize the narc detector, but you can get standalone products that help you, for instance, crush emotional thinking, or assist you with achieving a calming situation in a short space of time if you feel that you need that input. So there's a vast array of materials.
Yeah, and I would say it's you're reasonably priced, and just so much.
I'd say I'm overly generous.
Yes, and that's very much appreciated, because so many people who need your services can access you and the wonderful books and everything. And then you've got great merch, so you've got some other stuff too. I think
yes. So as you very kindly displayed the mug that you have, so there's the House of Tudor. So if you want to advertise your status as an empath, or demonstrate that you got out and you stayed out, or obtain your chickens of authenticity as well, then there's badges and fridge magnets and stickers and hoodies and t-shirts and mugs and phone cases and all manner of marvelous paraphernalia, all beautifully designed by my skilled designer. And you can access that and demonstrate to the world that you subscribe to HG Tudor.
Right. That's right. Well, HG, I have to say, I so appreciate you spending this time with me and sharing your knowledge. And I'm sure people will be reaching out to you. And just thanks so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you for inviting me on your program.